Hello, guys. So, me and Alfie are back out here. We've just had a burger. Alfie had some too. Was very happy with himself. But happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are out there, including my own dad as well, of course. He's going to be making an appearance on the channel, I think. I don't know what he wants to talk about yet. But obviously, he's a lifelong musician. And so it'll be interesting to see what he wants to chat about. But this week, I thought we would talk about scales. So there are many, many videos online with the kind of title, and it says, don't learn your scales, do this instead, or something. So on this topic, 𝐶𝐶 made a wonderful video on this topic, talking about this from a jazz player's angle. And I'll link that video below, because if you're wanting to aim towards a more traditional jazz sound, shall we say, then obviously I really encourage you on following everything that's said in that video. And as always, his advice is always absolutely spot on. So regardless, I would encourage you to watch that video for a different angle on the matter. But for me, scales are a very inspiring thing. I think people often just think about scales and they see it as like the maths of music or something. But for me, I see them as far, far more than that. So what is a scale? All a scale is a formula, an intervallic formula, you could say, to create a sound. And within this formula, you can start on different notes, and this will create a different formula to create different sounds. So each scale in itself is almost like a kind of solar system to explore. So many opportunities, melodic and harmonic opportunities found within scales. And I take great inspiration in exploring these. So when I learn a scale, the first thing to do is obviously literally learn the scale. And this is just the foundation. This shouldn't take long. As long as you've got a good knowledge of the major scale, you should be able to do this relatively quickly, because you could see any other scale as a variation on the major scale. So I would learn it in the cage positions. I would learn it in the 3-note per string positions. I would learn it in 4-note per string positions. And then I would combine the 3 and 4-note per string positions together to move up in octaves, which are very important shapes, I feel. The 4-note per string positions are less important for most scales, apart from a few like the diminished scale and stuff. Usually they're a bit less practical on the guitar, whereas by combining the 4 and 3-note per string scale shapes together, you get some really important shapes for moving up and down the neck. So that would be the first step in learning the scale. It's just the very bare bones. That shouldn't take very long. It's kind of like learning the words of a language that you then need to think about how you're going to put those words together in sentences. And that's kind of what developing language is in music. So then I would take a scale, say the melodic minor, and think and study it. And by study it, I would study as many options as I possibly can, whether it be triads, 7th chord and arpeggios. And then I would start combining these together and searching for language within the scale. Obviously, I could include chromaticism within these lines surrounding the scale, or maybe some jazz enclosures and all this. But essentially, I'm being creative and creating language from the basis of the scale that I will then experiment using in different contexts. So I find this an extremely rewarding and creative process that I use to develop language. Anyone that thinks just by mindlessly running up and down a scale or learning endless scales, this is obviously not going to develop your language. But I don't really think that most people at least, thinks this. Obviously, you're just going to end up knowing loads of scales. What's the way to do it is to really study one scale extremely deeply and exploring all the possibilities you possibly can. And then when you feel you've kind of got everything you can at that moment in your development, then maybe you can think, oh, well, let's explore a different color and think, okay, well, maybe I'll get some colors in from the diminished scale or another scale, and then you explore that and try and adopt these sounds into your playing. I find that an extremely creative way of creating vocabulary. I'm not saying that this way is any more creative than the more jazz approach of learning licks and combining them in a creative way. Because essentially, when you're creating your own vocabulary, your ear can be drawn towards sounds you've heard already. So it's not necessarily any more creative or unique or individual than it is to literally just learn someone else's language and adopt that in your own playing in a unique way. So I'm not trying to say that this is any more creative or any of that. I'm not downplaying the importance of transcribing or any of that stuff. But for me, I just don't enjoy doing it anymore. I used to, and I have learned language like that in the past. But nowadays, I just don't find it rewarding. And I don't find it enjoyable. I would rather take the formula of a scale and search for language within it, create language myself, and then adopt that into my playing. So that's the thing. When you don't expect to just learn a scale and suddenly you're going to start creating lines out of this scale, it doesn't work like that. You need to spend a long time creating lots and lots of different language within the sound of a scale. And then eventually, when you've got enough of this language that you've created, you'll be able to improvise around that. And you'll start feeling more free within the context of the scale you're improvising over. But yeah, so it's just, as I said before, I think people see these titles online, don't learn scales, do this instead. And I think that for them, maybe they're struggling with visualizing a scale on the fretboard or something. And maybe they see it as kind of like, like a hack or something that they can, oh, well, I don't need to learn scales then. But, and that's why I liked Cecil's video, because obviously he expressed the importance of learning scales as far as being able to visualize the fretboard is concerned. But I want to talk about the way that I use scales to experiment around with and generate language from. That although I use them also to visualize the fretboard, I also use them as a foundation for building language. So this week, the lesson is going to be Messian mode 3, and I'm doing a lesson on that. And a scale like that, there's so many different harmonic options in this scale. And the sound is very unique. And there's not a whole load of language available in the jazz literature that uses this scale, because it's a relatively less explored scale. So if you want to adopt these kind of sounds in your playing, then you have to explore it yourself. Obviously, you can find a handful of artists that use these sounds, whether it be Alan Holdsworth, Nelson Verat. Gary Thomas is a wonderful one, incredible sax player. But essentially, they are less explored than the major scale and the melodic minor. So there's going to be an element of exploration that will have to be done on your behalf to build up a vocabulary and be able to play within this scale freely. And as I say, I find this an incredibly rewarding process. I find it far more rewarding personally than transcribing a Clifford Brown lick and incorporating it in my solo. Some people will disagree with that. Some people would rather transcribe the Clifford Brown, and good on them for that. And as I've already said, it's not any more creative the way that I'm going about it. It's just a different way. But it may lead your ideas to sound a little bit less traditional within a style. And that's one thing. If you want to master a style, then I would probably recommend you to learn from the masters in that style and adopt their language and use it in a unique way. Experiment with taking this language and combining it in a way which is fresh and modern. So that is my opinion on scales. Yeah, I love exploring scales creatively. And I would encourage you to do the same if you so wish. So as I said, this week I'll be doing a lesson on Messian Mode 3. Sorry I didn't get around to doing a video this week, but as I said on the last video, I didn't want to churn any old stuff out and just put something out. I wanted to put a little bit more effort into getting something of value out on Messian's third mode. There are some decent lessons online. I'll link them in my video that I do. A guy called Scott something, he's doing some cool stuff with it. But there are also a lot of lessons of just people moving around patterns, you know, because of the symmetrical nature of the scale. And I think to really use the scale in an effective way, you have to go a little bit beyond that and study the scale a little bit deeper. Otherwise, these lines just end up sounding a little bit naff if you just literally run up patterns, run up and down symmetrically. I know Alan Holdsworth used those, but he also took it a lot further than that. So I'm going to try and demonstrate how that can be done, and also exploring it, you know, using it as a compositional tool. I've written a little chordal sequence out of it, which uses the mode 3 in a more kind of impressionistic way rather than a more atonal way. This is just what my ears drew me to when I was exploring it, and I feel that that's the thing with this scale. Depending on your ears, you will hear completely different things. There's so many different colors within the scale, and you can really, because of its unexplored, because many options have not been very well explored, you can really kind of create some ideas which are a little bit more, well, less commonly heard, shall we say. And I love that. I love that. So anyway, please watch the video and see what you get from it. Obviously, it's a relatively advanced. It's for more the advanced players who've got a grasp of basic music theory and stuff. But even if not, then maybe there'll be some ideas that that hopefully inspire you. That's the aim with it anyway. But anyway, guys, hope the audio's okay on this video. It's a little bit windy, I can see. My hair probably looks a bit crazy. But thanks for listening, as always, guys. Thanks for your support. There will be there's quite an in-depth PDF with this coming lesson to hopefully really help my Patreon supporters be able to explore the Messian mode 3 in its and find their own language within it. So yeah, that'll all be coming out this week. I think either Monday or Tuesday on Patreon, and I'll put it out on YouTube on Wednesday. But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for all your support, your comments, your likes. I'll be back very possibly with my dad next time for a musical chat about something. And yeah, so you get to see Daddy Harrison. And yeah, and have a wonderful week, guys. And I'll be back very shortly with Alfie for another video.